I actually came from UWM. So does the rest of the team. I was 15 years at UWM. I was the first one to reach over 1,000 loans in a month. So I have a nice experience with helping to grow things and make sure that the experience is the best. Couples with that, I actually was on the user experience team. So any of the things and technology you have used, that was part of my charm that I provided to the company. Again, what we want to make sure is everything is unmatched and you guys are experiencing the best, as well as the consumers are experiencing the best opportunity possible. What I really found coming out of the mortgage space is most people typically come from UWM. If they're an account executive, they go into opening up their own office and doing those kind of things, which I really loved. But I found a nice match between the solar industry and mortgages in that it's a little bit similar, as well as we're able to double leverage the opportunity with that same consumer, since how we're dealing with money, homes at the exact same time. So within that, I was able to bring in some great team from UWM as well. So the whole team of SunLiving Solar is actually from UWM as well. So that again helps kind of get the same method, technology mindset that we have put in place to make sure we're kind of like Google. We're always changing and improving for the better. But again, want to make sure that your experience is unmatched by anybody else. So what we found is this really aligned within your guys' business model. But the biggest thing for us is some people have actually started to open up and try and go into the solar space themselves. But this business is quite complicated and obviously can be cumbersome. And the problem is when you have another focus, it takes you away from your primary focus. And what we really want to do is make sure that you're originating relationships while still not missing out on collecting money and earning money whenever possible, but not distracting you from your primary. So with this, we've actually been able to see a lot of consumers save lots and lots of money over time, even hundreds of thousands of dollars over a 25-year lifespan. So in that you're in Utah and actually doing business in Georgia, the best part is it doesn't just have to be where you're at or when your one primary business is at. It actually can go from coast to coast. And I say that because one of our clients is actually in California, and she had family from Massachusetts and did a lot of they're actually in the real estate businesses that. So from there, I would say is keep in mind where your clients are located, where your friends or family members are located, where their friends and family are located, because we could be helping out anybody. Why we're not in every state is because every state is the most advantageous for solar. For instance, we actually had one of our clients that was looking to put solar on his secondary home in Alabama, but in Alabama, there's a thing called net metering, and I'll kind of go in that a little bit later on. But they actually charge you to put solar on. So again, or sometimes the cost of electricity and all these other things are just so low that the financial benefits just aren't quite there. So this is why we kind of focus on the most primary states. And again, kind of not knowing where solar is the best opportunity. It's not just on the West Coast or just in the sunny states. New Jersey, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, those actually have some of the highest costs within the country for energy because they have old archaic infrastructures. And so within that, again, on the right-hand side, you're going to see a fun fact. New Jersey is actually the number 7 state for solar. So they're really incentivizing a couple of different ways to help kind of push it along. But again, try and think very macro and to say where your opportunity lies, again, where your friends and family lie and their friends and family really lie. And I say because that's the easiest way to make some money out of this. So going into a little bit of the problem that's going out there and some of the benefits is right now there's $17.6 trillion in consumers' debt. This is the highest it's ever been. Inflation's at its highest it's ever been. So the cost of living and all these other things are just so outrageous. So anything we can do to help kind of put a cap on that and really beat inflation is really going to be to your advantage. Out of that, we can also reduce or potentially even eliminate electricity bills. So the best part is now you're able to lock in. It's like getting a gas card in today, as opposed to back, when I first started driving, it was under $1 for gas, right? I would love to have bought my gas or my energy back when I first started driving it under $1, as opposed to getting up to the $5 set right now, because we all know the future costs way more than the past does. So it really kind of helps put a cap on that. As well, the industry has been known for increasing, and obviously because again, the future always costs more. Last year, the average increase across the United States is 9%. I mean, there's some spots where it's over 25%. So this is dramatic increases. And it's not something the consumers ever have a chance of putting a cap on, except for through solar. So out of that, the federal government is really stimulating, because the energy is such a deficiency right now, especially when it comes across to their new grids and all these other kind of things that they're looking to do, and getting away from the outside resources that come from like natural gas and obviously having to do oil. So they're really giving a lot of nice incentives. The federal government's actually picking up 30% of the bill off of this. So it's a real nice thing to be able to get that one-time gas card at a 30% off discount coming from a federal tax credit. In addition to that, there are state and property tax exemptions. So the states are really trying to incentivize people to go for this too, because there's a lot of mandates in Florida and other places that actually have their renewable energy has to be a certain percentage of their future growth needs to be covered by that. So they're incentivizing that. And then additionally, the utility companies, because they can't necessarily invest in every way at the exact same time, they're actually helping to provide benefits back to consumers as well. They're called SRECs. And what that potentially does, give consumers an ability to be able to cash in them actually getting the solar. So not just one of these things, you could potentially have all three at the exact same times. Why I really kind of focus about that tax exemption, the sales exemption, is because that really helps solidify to the consumers that this is actually value add to their property as well. But now they're not necessarily being taxed by that increased value, which again, maybe some of the concerns going across the board. So obviously why we're all here is not just to be able to help out the world and provide a greener opportunity, but it's actually to be able to make some money at the exact same time. So within this, you're going to be able to see, this is a quick kind of numbers to be able to see on a one of our quotes that we are able to provide to a consumer. Out of this, you guys are actually able to receive a 35% commission. This is without the Nexus split. Obviously, I know they have an extra split on top of what you guys do for your business. So it's just straight 35% across the board. It's also 1099, so it allows you to do write-offs at the end of the day and potentially even reinvest back into your business. So it's a nice opportunity with that. So within this quote, you're going to see this one was a smaller system at a 4.5. The average system in the United States is a 7.7. So that's where you're going to start to see the commissions are actually going to be paid to you. In this case, it was about a $2,000 commission average for you guys. And then an average across the United States is a 7.7. As well, you can actually apply it to your property. We have a lot of people apply it to their own properties. You can either take it as the commission back, and or you can even apply it towards a discount on your system, again, to be able to get the long-term savings. So within this, you're going to see the system costs. What we try and do is make sure they're very competitive within the market space. Just to give you a quick number, one of our clients, they had one of their family members go to a normal retail operation, and between the normal retail operation and our quote, we were $9,000 cheaper. So I'm not necessarily going to say that's everybody across the board. But again, what we want to really do is protect your reputation, give the consumers a great deal whilst they're earning nice money off these projects. Why you're going to see the commissions are a little bit higher is because we can't necessarily go put another system on their house, right? Seeing as how they're a single transaction, this is why the opportunity to be able to make a little bit more is a little bit on the stronger side. So within this project to be able to quote out, they were actually be able to recoup the cost within 6.14 years, which is dramatic. And then quoting down below, you can see their average monthly payment was $234. And then after putting solar on, it then went down to $23. Obviously, the great part about that is the grid use. Yes, you see there's still a couple bucks where they're having to pay from the grid. But within that, I would, if you're going to have a 9% increase, I'd rather have a 9% increase of $6.89 than $234. That obviously is going to compound it to be a lot bigger numbers. And that's where you're going to see the lifetime savings for this consumer on this $24,000 project, but the 30% off ended up being $17,000, but the lifetime savings was $122,000. So obviously being in the mortgage space, you're really able to extrapolate the benefits of this. And this is almost kind of like an extra retirement plan for these consumers, let alone when someone else is having to pick up the bill off of this. So obviously really helps kind of put the things together. Going off a couple of those things too, about how it really makes sense for people and their properties. Zillow actually did a study on this, that it increases the value on the property 4.1% on average. So depending on the market where it's at, some of them are actually as high as 9%, but to be able to get a construction project put on your home where it actually saves you money and then actually make your home value go up even more is just a great compliment. And I say that because most people would prefer to buy a home that has solar than doesn't have solar, because obviously if you can reduce the energy bill or eliminate the energy bill, just means the ownership of that home is a lot less. So This is why they then found that properties that have solar actually sell for 20% faster than homes without solar. So obviously it makes a real nice advantage. Other benefits that even I would say my family is able to benefit out of is the backup, the battery backup. So a lot of our consumers we found that are self-employed, they live at home, they work at home, and the problem is if the battery or the energy goes, or not the battery, but if the energy goes out, like in California, they had 4 brownouts just last year alone, that they were out of business for that day. Obviously, going out of business for a day costs you money. We like planned vacations, not unplanned vacations. And your vendors don't always know how to work with you if you're in or out of it. So being able to be self-reliant with your energy is a nice way to keep everything moving, especially when it's not up to them. So as well as, again, being able to reduce or eliminate the energy bills. And then on top of that, there's environmental benefits. This is why you're seeing that they're putting a lot of solar farms out there for everybody. But the worst part about these solar farms, this only benefits the utility companies, right? No consumer is going to get the benefit out of the discount now with the sun is paying for these bills. It's only their investment that they're able to recoup. And then obviously these are going to go for 25 plus years of basically free money that they're going to be collecting from the consumer. So might as well give the power back to the people where it really counts. Going to a little bit of the problem off of this stuff is obviously the future grid. The future grid is such a complex thing. Obviously, we're based here in Michigan, again, still doing it within 36 states. Within that, you're going to see that the General Motors alone has invested $35 billion into their electric vehicles. And the problem is, again, just as I was mentioning just a minute ago, when California has already had 4 brownouts because the infrastructure currently can't help it. Well, again, imagine if all these electric vehicles that they're requiring by 2035 to be able to be on there, it's not a sustainable thought process, right? They're putting so much cost and demand in there, but it's not quite there. And as you can see, the energy demand just over the last couple of years, typically been 5% within the last decade, and now it's up to 18% just this year alone, and they're expecting by 38%. And the thing is, these utility companies are not in business to go out of business, right? It's not their tab they're having to pick up. So it's the consumers that are left on the line that are going to be having to pick up the future tabs. So it only makes it more of a complicated problem, let alone, as you can see below, Massachusetts is also, just by 2025, is requiring 25% of the vehicles sold be electric, right? And again, these are systems and where they're already having so much taxation on them that they need other ways to alleviate that stress and that problem. So again, this is why the government's kind of put their money in there. Let alone, I don't know if you guys will see or if you guys even have yourself, but there's batteries on everything. I have family members that have the electric lawnmowers as you're seeing right now, and that's going to get away from the gas. So now that we know that all the household appliances are no longer to be gas, they're moving everything to be electric. It's just a problem is going to keep growing and growing and growing. They actually did a study in California that they're potentially looking at. It's an estimated $50 billion of investment that they're going to have to go for the future. Again, because the utility companies aren't in business to go out of business. All they're going to do is tax everybody else that. So anybody that's left on the line is really going to be the one to pay, which is obviously going to hurt. So this is what kind of gives you nice benefits in the future. Here's a quick chart of some of the comparison about SunLiving Solar versus everybody else. We still have the same 25-year warranty, so you're not going to have to worry about that. We have financing in-house, so we're able to take the people from 0 to 100%, no problem. But we really love the option for you guys to be able to make money off of the financing, the front side of it, because ours just aren't as competitive in the space. And let alone if these consumers already have consumer debt, then it's obviously a great way to kind of tie them together. Obviously, we do the project management, we have battery storage, but the biggest thing we have is wholesale savings. Why I say that, obviously, you guys are in the broker space right now. And within that, you're able to shop to be able to go to the best person, the best installer. And that's essentially what we do. So we can help negotiate some of those costs to get them down, or make sure that we're picking out the right installers, all while still having everything else that the normal retail officer operations do without having to sacrifice anything, as well as faster turn times. So it kind of puts everything in a nice little opportunity. So on this screen, what you're going to see, there is a nice benefit of owning versus leasing. I'm not necessarily going to go through all of them, but the biggest benefit you'll see is, again, kind of mentioned on the first screen or just a couple screens ago, is the 4.1 increase. Well, that's going to be go off of owning a system, not necessarily leasing, right? Within that, obviously, it's like owning a car versus leasing a car. If you own it for a long term, you're gonna have the cost and the cost up front of it. But and essentially, what you're doing with these costs is you're swapping the bills, because it's not like the electric bill's ever going away, right? This is the only way to help kind of alleviate around that. And obviously, the faster they pay it off, the greater savings that they get, et cetera, et cetera. So this is owning is probably my favorite, and allowed you guys to get a lot of the benefits, as well as we can add in re-roofing and a lot more customization when it comes to owning versus the leasing. But the leasing does provide some nice opportunities. And why I like the leasing as a good option, because some consumers just want to go in and automatically save money. And I'm not going to give this number as being a guarantee for anybody and everybody, but we had a consumer we were just doing a lease option for, and her bill was averaging $200 a month. And from that, we were able to put it down to $115 a month without having to do anything but basically rent out their roof. So really kind of provided nice options. Again, they're transferable, but they can't actually purchase those systems after 6 years. The negative that they're not going to get out of it is a tax benefit. Obviously, if you own a system and you have ability to capture the taxes and the tax alleviation, then it provides nice opportunity for owning the system, because again, you get to get that, and you get all the benefits for the future. Again, I really like the owning side for you guys to be able to help increase the loan amounts, especially when you consolidate debt, but nice options between the two. And we really would do want to offer it up and put the consumer in the best situation, let them choose. So again, coming from some of our UW background, what we found is kind of more of the Henry Ford way of doing things, which is the assembly line. And so this is how we kind of roll through our process. Again, we're going to do everything e-sign, as opposed to having going, most people go out to properties and other kind of like that. We have technology to help kind of put it in place. But again, we try and make everything be virtual as a nice convenience to the consumer, because again, this is the way mortgages used to be in office, and now we go to the virtual experience. But we really love this assembly line because it makes the role specialization even more of an expert within each part of it, as well make sure the consumer is getting the best experience all the way through. I mentioned a little bit about the virtual experience. Some of our technology is actually 99.9%, 99.97% accurate within the measurements and everything else. So again, some places will actually have to bring a drone out, or they'll get someone on the roof to start doing some measurements. As you can see from the consumer, we're able to place the tiles exactly where they want for aesthetic reasons, so they can help choose what they like or don't like. But we're also then be able to articulate to them, what is the path of that sun? Why some spots are more advantageous than others? Because at the end of the day, if you're paying for every panel that's on your house, we want to make sure we're maximizing it and really hitting your target goal. And out of that, we're also then be able to paint the picture about the consumer's benefit for the environmental side, like the forest. You know, how many miles driven that they'd be saving, let alone the carbon that they're able to save for the future. So some people it's about the savings, some people it's about the environmental, and some people it's technology that really kind of driven for each part of it, but really able to kind of check off the boxes for each one. Again, how it kind of makes the most sense for you guys and how it kind of said it aligned within your products and your flow of doing business is because you guys are a trusted advisor. You know, you guys know more about these consumers than a lot of their family members. So they're going to actually start to look at you and trust your numbers when you start to say, here's how it can benefit you outside of that. So when you can kind of usher that trust in, it then kind of alleviates some of that thing of saying, am I being sold, or am I being sold something that actually has value? As well as I really love this for you guys right now. Right now, it's super hard to have value propositions to be able to offer somebody and client retentions. And this is one of the best ways, because obviously if you're just a one-trick pony, then they're only going to think of that. Right. And if they have a 2% interest rate, well, it's a lot harder to call them back up and do a mortgage review when they have a low interest rate, right? You want to make it value back to them. So this is a great way to be able to have a nice retention product for your clients. So if you do purchases, you're able to go back and circle back around to them and actually have meaningful conversations, as well as again, coming from the UW background, the guidelines look for FHA looks for utility bills, because they're seeing how much this can cost someone on a monthly basis. For instance, like one of our clients in California, his average bill was $775 a month. You know, this is a lot of money that adds up that people aren't necessarily just thinking of. So now that you're able to have it within your flow of business and be able to collect utility bills, it just kind of makes sense. On top of that, obviously, if you guys are writing cash outs or HELOCs right now you're able to compile that with some of the other credit card debt and anything else you're paying off increasing those loan amounts. So then you're making more money off of those. And obviously, if you're then able to put that together in the future, now you've just doubled your future loan amount even higher at the same time, while the consumer, again, is still saving money. So this is real savings for everybody. Additionally, networking opportunities. This is probably one of the other things I really love about it, is not just because that client retention, because you guys are really in business to create relationships. So when you're out there able to go meet partners for roofers or other home improvement people, now you're making more connections. Now they know who you are. And actually, some of the next brokers have already told us they're already getting business and referring business over and creating opportunities for making some money on those HELOCs. And I say it because when it comes to some of the financing of the secondary market, or I'll call it the third market off of this, it's not that attractive, right? And so like on a roof, typically those loans are about a 10 to 15-year note, right? If you're able to put someone on 25 or 30-year note, you're able to compound that savings a lot more and really leverage it up. And obviously that can be a nice benefit for some of those networking opportunities, because you make that kind of a yes into a hard yes to the consumers to be able to pass forward. So some of the best practices, I would say, is really recommended during cash out HELOCs, right? If they're already spending money, why not save even more money at the end of the day? Loan increases your loan amounts. At refinances, again, ask for utility bills. FHA requires it. Conventional doesn't require it just yet, but who knows if they will in the future. Again, what you're looking for is to give the consumer a well-rounded value proposition that actually goes back to them. And they don't know what documentation is always needed. So it's a nice way to kind of slide everything in together. And then what we're also able to do is customize the system based on their budget, right? Obviously, sometimes we have LTVs that we're maxed on, right? Some lenders are all up to 95, but if our loan amount goes up to 96, then it cancels out a deal. Well, now we can really customize it for you guys and what the borrower's wants or needs are. As well as I kind of mentioned before, post-close follow-up. Within this, you guys are actually able to follow up with the consumer 3 months after it closed. Hey, how's your utility bills looking? Well, now you can match the two together and say, I got a solution for you. I've hooked up with a utility reduction company that could potentially save you some nice money and obviously increase value in your home. Again, if you're working with some realtors, they're going to love your higher, bigger paychecks off of that. Now that property is able to be sold for more money, as well as a faster turnaround, which obviously helps in that networking system. And then on top of that, some of consumers, they don't always think about all the costs that actually go into purchasing a home, let alone the down payments, outside of that, the title work, all this extra. Well, now you can actually add in the consumers. We can potentially have them request more money to then offset a solar system as well. If you're getting a gift, it's a lot easier to ask for $50,000 up front than trying to go for $30,000 and take a note out for something else later on. So it can provide a nice marriage between the two. And so out of this, sometimes it's really hard to kind of know how to market to the consumers. Obviously, we want to make it as easy for you guys as possible. We have a connection with Bonzo. So if you guys are or not familiar, we're happy to introduce you to them. But what they have is a nice system that helps make sure that you guys can be able to communicate back. But we actually have campaigns built in there for you so that you don't have to think of what would I want to respond with, right? We actually have all that kind of laid out. So it's a nice little thing, and you can kind of pick the algorithm in which you want to communicate or have your touch points with the consumer, but it helps kind of push things through. In addition to that, we're happy to do co-branded marketing if you want. Obviously, you guys have Ella Support that does great marketing as well. But I would say put the two together. Sometimes it's hard to know what to advertise with or advertise about. But here's just a couple of quick examples, and we're always open to trying to create more things or think outside the box, because the most creative person is obviously going to win the deal and obviously get the most attention. And that's really what your eyes and your ears are trying to do, is saying, hey, everybody, look at me. The more you can have people focused on you, really creates the opportunity for future opportunities. As well as I kind of like to give the analogy of, not everybody knows why Under Armour is so popular, right? They just hear about it, they see it all the time. And now this is one of those same kind of things. You become a trusted brand because you're out there constantly marketing, saying, hey, I'm beating the marketplace. As you may or may have not have heard, but there's a lot of people leaving the mortgage space right now. Well, you don't necessarily have to. You can beat those people out by still staying relevant to the consumers at the end of the day as much as possible. And obviously marketing is a great way to be able to stay in front of them. So out of that, what you can do is you can actually log right on our website. We do have a nice TPO portal, and I'll show you how to be able to get access to that. But you can say, click become a partner, and then from there, we'll help get you your logins and going from there. And in those logins, that takes you to our Sunrise portal, what this allows you to do is to upload your consumers to us, as well as upload the utility bill, because that's really the most important thing, is getting those utility bills so we can actually gauge the consumer's energy demand and usage. I'll give you a little quick story out of that too. We had one of our consumers that she was going to be retiring in the next 10 years, but she was purchasing an electric vehicle, as well as she was going to be starting a pottery business. So she was going to have a fiery furnace put back in her garage, right? And so out of that, being able to work with you guys and know what their wants and future demands are, we can help kind of put the perfect marriage together for each side of it to really build the best system for the consumer. But again, getting those utility bills is the easiest way to say how much are they actually using, how many miles do they drive in a month, as opposed to like their energy, how much do they use in a month, to then be able to gauge how much we need to build out on average for the consumer at the end of the day. And again, out of the Sunrise TPO portal, one of my other favorite parts about it, you're actually able to track the progression of the lead, right? There's a lot of times you kind of refer someone out and you don't know exactly what's going on, where it's going, if it's actually taken shape. Well, we actually are making sure that we're putting all these things like UWM's U-Track that helps create. We want to give you enough information to say, okay, my shoelaces are going to arrive here, or there's where I expect it to go, or maybe it didn't go south, or maybe the consumer wasn't as interested as they once were, right? But allows you really to gauge that rather than going to a black hole of nothingness and not really knowing. So again, being able to be transparent with the progress is huge, I know, for everybody. So obviously we can open to any questions that people may have, but feel free to step in, anything we can do to help answer. If not, we do have a couple of free prefabbed questions to be able to provide everybody as well.
All right, Scott, I'll get those ones started for you. Hey guys, I'm Dan. I'm basically an account executive for you guys. So a few of you will be hearing from me tomorrow and throughout the, next week. But, typically a lot of questions that people are asking me is, kind of like, what is our sales strategy like?
Great questions. Thank you, Dan. Well, one of the biggest things, because these are your past clients and your referrals, what we really want to make sure is we're protecting them. We are not a hard edge salespeople. We're really pushing to people. What we're doing is provide a nice offering. And if they want to go for it, they're going to go for it. At the end of the day, this is your client. So we want to protect that as much as possible, but we're on top of it. So you don't have to worry about, are they communicating? Are they being proactive with their communication? We're all on top of that, but without the hard edge sales and sliminess.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then Danilo had a question in the chat, Scott. So I'll just read it. It says, in terms of slides information, are we able to have access to it as a printed sheet, sort of a folder for the presentation?
Yeah, well, what I would say is, out of that, we're happy to help try and educate as much as possible. But again, our goal isn't necessarily to make you solar salesmen, as opposed to recommended referral parties. So knowing enough highlights, and we actually can send out some nice highlights and some talking points about solar, which I think what you want to be more a part of. And I say that because if you start to get your foot too far into that water, it may start to take you with an undercurrent. And obviously we want to make sure that you're proactive. But again, I'm happy to help kind of come up with a great presentation with you to make sure you feel comfortable with it. But at the end of the day, we're going to have the presentation on our side of it to go to the consumer. So I wouldn't want to mismatch any of the words that you used and or opportunities you're going to present to them, as opposed to maybe what is possible or not possible at the end of the day. So I would say is we can do one-on-ones, and that's one of the best parts about Dan and Chuck and myself to be able to go over it with you guys, is to make sure that you feel comfortable enough to be able to sell it without feeling like this is overwhelming at the same time.
Well, Danilo agrees with you. So
yay. Again, front and focused.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you kind of answered this next question that's typically asked, but I'll ask it anyways, is what type of training, past the presentation is available for us?
Again, what I really love, sometimes it's not always, I am a introvert and an extrovert at the exact same time, but sometimes you get me a group, I may not be the person to raise my hand. So I'd say contact us. Again, we want to make sure that you feel educated, but not too much and overwhelmed, because again, we want you originating mortgages, which is going to help build in the rest of the part of the business. But this is just a great warm introduction to help kind of move along. But contact us. We'll help you to help fill in the gaps to make sure you feel comfortable to offer this up to your consumers without any questions.
Okay. Another one I get asked, sorry, I'm just trying to think of one that's pretty common is what's the typical system cost?
So it really just depends, again, how I kind of use the illustration about how many miles they may drive in a month. What we try and do is build those system sizes, and it goes by the house, the square footage, the locations, as well as the cost for the consumers. But I would say it really just depends, but can average between 15,000 all the way up to 75,000, where we have one actually going on that requires that. So it really just depends, but it's very affordable. And at the end of the day, this is basically just a bill swap for the consumers. So they're always going to see savings in the future, let alone if you can compound it on your side. So
Perfect. And then our friend Carol has a question is how much does it cost to lease your roof?
I love that. So what there is, and obviously because we're all on the same side of this, is it really just depends on the consumer, what their wants, their demands are. California potentially has great leasing, but these days they require batteries to go with it for the consumer to be able to see that. So for them renting out the roof, it really just depends, and it goes off their system size and their costs, as well as the placement of those panels. But average, I would say these consumers are going to receive, 15 to 30% off, potentially even higher off of their bills. But again, what we try and do is weigh that between all of the numbers and the option, the commissions, to say what makes the most sense while still being competitively priced out there. So I know that's not a targeted answer, but it's a very rounded answer, if you will.
Okay. Great answers. And one last one that I can think of just like kind of off the top of my head is what differentiates us from other solar companies?
Again, going back to kind of that comparison chart, mortgages are apples and oranges. So what we're able to do is provide lower costs, just as the brokering world is able to do against the retail world, while still offering the same warranties. But it's really going to be that customary service, as well as making sure that we know how to look out for you guys at the end of the day. There's a lot of times where you don't know who your partner is and how complimentary they are to you. And that's one of the biggest things that we can do, is speak highly of you guys with all those things. We'll give them the same great things that they're doing, as well as advantages outside of the market by being able to leverage within our installers across the country. The bigger we are, obviously, the greater we are with all those kind of things. So it really helps kind of leverage across. But I would say brokering us, as well as the discounted costs, and then obviously your guys' commission splits is going to be the big advantages. But really, the consumers are going to save the most amount of money with us.
Perfect. And then another question from Carol. Can we offer the Tesla battery? Is the battery the highest cost of the solar package?
Yes. So batteries really just depends. We don't try and put a lot of or any margins on the batteries, but we can offer those up, and we do have Teslas available. Sometimes it just depends on the market that for what's available. But yes, some people love having that brand name of Tesla to be able to throw it in there. So that's not necessarily an issue. We can do that as well. But again, those batteries, just to give you an average, are going to run, $9,000 a piece, and depends on the size of the system. We may have to put one or two in there. So this is going to be, I don't want to call it a luxury item, but it's going to be for future benefits for the consumer, not necessarily just a cost saving at that point. So keeping that in mind. And feel free to speak up if any got questions. You don't have to just put in the chat. It's an open forum.
Can you tell us more about the Bongo system or
Bonzo?
Bonzo?
Yeah. So Bonzo is a really nice system. I forget who they just merged with, but Bonzo is probably coming from the mortgage industry and being there for 15 years. It's probably the best CRM that I've been able to see out there. Does a lot of automation, actually has a lot of marketing pieces in there for you guys, but it can do calls, text, ringless voicemails, but it does it on a one-to-one basis. So it allows for the new texting laws to actually go through and feeling like each communication piece is intimate, while not necessarily requiring you to have to hire someone else to be able to do part of that job. So I highly recommend it. Again, this is the best one that I found. And I don't want to say that I have all my secrets, but that's one of my secrets and some of my secrets that some of the top performers at UWM have used to really help grow their business. Well, excuse me, not necessarily increasing their overhead, because obviously the hard part about having some of these people to help communicate back to consumer on your behalf, let alone the time of day, if the minute that you want it, it provides a nice flow. It's a very easy system. So the interaction, because there's some that can be very tumultuous. So I'm a big fan of that one specifically. And again, we have campaigns built within it, but they also have other campaigns that you can build out for yourself to really make it interactive. That can help. And again, if you want, we can get you a demo with them as well.
How much does it cost?
I don't want to speak on their behalf, but I think it's like, I mean, honestly, even if it was $100 a month, I think it's well worth it, just because you can't hire an assistant to be able to do something like that and be so automated. So that way you can set up your whole system to be able to communicate out on your behalf at whatever points of the day that you choose. And honestly, it's for our internal going to our direct to consumer market. It's been pivotal because the interactions is by far the best that we've been able to have. Be able to go off the automated text messaging and English voicemails, those kind of things, while still making it compliant at the end of the day.
Can I ask where you get your leads from?
You guys, as well as there's some other companies. Like one of them's called the Clean Energy, so we go off of them. But it's really just other people that we found in the business. I would say the solar business isn't quite as robust as the mortgage space is for leads. So within that, I would say I wouldn't recommend going and trying to purchase them. It can be very expensive. I spent tens of thousands of dollars on a lot of stuff that didn't really work. And that's what I would say is your network is probably going to be your best avenue to be able to create revenue off of it. Because again, you're their trusted advisor. When you call up and don't have much to go off of, like this business has always been known for door knockers, is actually how it's taken off so much. And so this is why we're kind of coming in from a different angle from the mortgage way of doing things, of going right through your trusted parties and referrals. So that's why I say I wouldn't recommend going for that solar sales side of things, because you're obviously may not know where to talk or be able to communicate with. But there are some out there, and I'm happy to show you if you ever wanted to, but I highly wouldn't recommend it unless you like throwing money at the ceiling.
No.
Not today's market, at least.
Not today. All right. I can't think of any other questions.
Great questions, though. Anybody else inquisitive enough? And again, feel free to touch base with us. We're happy to communicate, and I'll have the guys follow up with you guys tomorrow to be able to go over that, just in case you have more things that you want to think about or kind of come to question with. Or again, feel free to reach out to us on our website to be able to even test play your own house if you wanted to test out that little portal to say, how does that work for them? What does the savings potentially look like? At the end of the day, what we want to do is make this a complimentary service that you guys have going on without weighing you down. Again, originating relationships is the most important part. That's where you're going to make your most amount of money. So we want this just to be your extra avenue to be able to keep you floating around this tough market. Love it. Well, again, feel free to reach. Thank you. If anybody needs anything, again, feel free to reach out. We really do appreciate your guys' time and interest in this. And I assure you, I wouldn't leave UWM for 15 years being one of the top producers. At the end of the day, it was their second all-time top producer, if I didn't think this field was advantageous enough for everybody. So I think you're really going to love it, but don't hesitate in anything. We appreciate you guys.
Thank you. Nice meeting you all.
Likewise. Have a great night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.